The 5th of May 2019 is a date which will remain firmly etched on the minds of Essex Police in Basildon.
I don't think it's something you can ever put behind you. It's something that I'm going to remember for the rest of my life, and I'm sure it's the same for my colleagues.
Nothing could have prepared me mentally for what happened on the 5th of May.
I'd never been involved in an incident so big as this.
I still find it unbelievable that somebody did that to us.
Canvey Island, Essex. A convoy of cars and motorbikes have gathered at an industrial estate in memory of the death of a friend. Police are monitoring the event closely.
By about 10 we started to get reports of individuals driving dangerously on the pavements and through the car parks, pulling wheelies, doing donuts on motorcycles, which is extremely dangerous. As the commander, I just kept a watchful eye. I had a helicopter above as well. This was quite a large gathering of people, and we didn't quite know how things were going to pan out. We wanted to have good visual control.
The police notice that one person is riding a bike dangerously.
This individual stuck out in the crowd. There weren't many people actively goading the police, but his behaviour on the bike had not only been reckless enough to draw our attention, but it continued to be reckless and deliberately antagonistic. And he sped off up the road, up the wrong way, and made a break for it. And that's what started the police response in seeking to apprehend this guy. My priority at all points was to minimise risks to the public.
Once you've got the helicopter up, we've got a massive advantage over them. So it was just a case of we were just watching it and monitoring it, waiting to see what would happen and hoping it would come to a safe conclusion. But then obviously the longer and longer it went on, we kind of realised, oh, this isn't going to end quickly.
There's nothing good about driving through an underpass at speed where vehicles don't go, it's only pedestrians. We followed him. He knew the helicopter was above him. You don't get away from the police that easy.
After an 8-mile pursuit, the police have him cornered.
And this time the plan was very clear. He doesn't leave this location other than a police van.
But now a crowd of 20 to 30 people have gathered around the rider.
The crowd were very hostile towards the police. You could hear them sort of like blocking him off, not wanting the moped rider to be arrested, as you can expect.
Chief Inspector Baldwin decides to move in slowly and arrest the offender.
It was just a case of making sure he had nowhere to hide. He was in the open, and I had enough officers to put a ring of steel around him and then move in.
The moped rider then revs the bike and throws it to the ground.
At that point, it went pretty much as good as can be. The chap on the bike kind of gave up almost immediately.
And then myself and other officers all moved in just to sort of try and give everyone the breathing space to work and make sure nothing escalated further.
And it was at that point that we started to have to manage the unexpected. You don't expect a woman in her 40s to emerge wielding a hammer above her head, screaming at officers and running around threatening officers, holding the hammer in her hand. Thankfully, 2 officers had spotted her, managed to get into a blind spot behind her, and as she went to lift the hammer, they snatched it out the back of her hand and disarmed her, and at that point, 3 officers detained her.
Meanwhile, other officers rush in to help arrest the moped driver.
Right, you're under arrest on suspicion of theft of motor vehicle. You're not saying anything, but never how he defends, do not mention my question. So I'm trying to ride court. Do you want cuffs? Do you want cuffs?
With a hammer-wielding woman and moped rider apprehended,
2 in custody.
officers still need to control the increasingly agitated crowd.
They were all shouting and swearing at us, telling us that what we were doing was wrong and that we didn't need to be doing it and all this kind of stuff. And we get that every day. We're used to people shouting and swearing and telling us that we're idiots. And then out the corner of my eye, I saw a gentleman appear from down one of the alleyways who was just sprinting at full speed towards where we were obviously trying to protect. So I ran across towards him to kind of intercept him and stop him going through. That kind of ended up in me and him colliding.
And the two of them ended up on the ground with the officer underneath.
I was pretty much at the bottom of the pile. You've got officers trying to get him off of me. He had his arms wrapped around my legs trying to just keep hold of me.
And then everything did go crazy.
Later, things spiral as another man joins the attack, using petrol as a weapon.
Going through my head was just panic.
Get him away!
I was hearing them shout, "Light them up."
In Essex, police have chased a dangerous driver on a moped into a local estate.
Right, you're under arrest. Let's fix the theft of my vehicle.
They've arrested 2 people and are struggling with a third when things take an even darker turn.
It was while we were trying to get control of this gentleman who had run out of the middle of nowhere that this other chap has appeared with the watering can.
A man carrying a large watering can sprints over and throws the liquid over the faces of nearby officers. PC Cuts steps in to fend off the attacker.
I didn't know what was in the watering can. It could have been anything. Initially, my first thoughts were it was probably acid. But sort of as I got nearer, I could smell like this petrol. So I've sort of fumbled around to get my baton out, but once I've eventually got it, so I've put it behind my head and then just struck him, like in line with our training. So it's not just a random act of sort of violence, it's a controlled measure that we're taught to use to sort of get people away from us and create a safe distance.
It wasn't until the smell kind of hit us that everyone realised what that actually was.
Initially, it just felt like stinging. You could feel like tingling sort of all down my front where the petrol had gone.
And then obviously you've got people shouting petrol, petrol, because obviously we had officers with taser there. There's obviously the consideration for the tasers could spark and ignite the petrol. The 8 of us were now covered in petrol.
You all right?
We still had this chap on the floor that we needed to restrain. We still had a crowd that needed to be kind of controlled. And obviously we still had the chap who had just poured petrol on us. We didn't know where he was or if he was now going to try and set us on fire.
One match, one lighter, one spark could result in us going up in flames and being disfigured for life or possibly even dead.
We could hear the crowd saying all sorts of things, like saying who's got matches, who's got a lighter, set them on fire.
Going through my head was just panic because there were people smoking around us, taser officers behind us.
I was hearing them shout, "Light them up." I don't know how we didn't just cut and run. But then that's not the way we're wired. We all stuck together. And there's something running in the core of us that says you don't run away from the danger, you run towards it.
Strike at 8, we need an ambulance here for the officers that have had petrol thrown in their face.
The team need backup urgently. An officer presses their emergency button.
When that red button gets pressed, anybody and everybody on any channel, any serving police officer on duty at that time gets a notification that there's an officer in trouble. Well, there were quite a few of us in trouble at that point.
Detective Constable Natalie Backhouse is in her office when she gets the call.
I heard the emergency assistance call being put up, and I can't recall his exact words, but it was something similar to, just get everybody here. And hearing those words, my heart just sank.
We needed the team around us to make decisions for us at that point, because we'd been taken to a place where we'd never had that done to us before.
Everybody in the office just bundled into the car. We drove there quick as we could.
There was noise, there was activity, there was banging, crashing. We were on the top of a car, people were on the ground, people were in pain. There was a cacophony of sound which was just very immediate, with the constant sound of the helicopter overhead.
Backup officers arrive at the scene.
It's something that no one's ever, well, no, I'd certainly never experienced before or heard of before, but everybody kind of just knew what to do straight away. Obviously, the guys who had been covered in it the worst, who got it in their eyes and their mouths, who had fallen to the ground, officers straight away went over to them, helped them up and just took them out of the situation and started giving them first aid.
Get him away!
We were helping some across who'd got it all in their eyes, who sounded like they just couldn't see anything. And their faces were red, their eyes were just stinging.
We had members of the public coming out, offering saucepans and kettles full of water, helping them rinse their faces off and stuff like that.
I immediately started washing off my arms, which were burning at that point. My head was burning and down the back of my shirt. So at that point, I basically just got a bucket of water poured over my head to try and to wash off the worst of it.
When we got there, there was officers everywhere, emergency services staff everywhere.
Fire crew turned up and they obviously washed us down with their hoses and stuff after the members of the public had kind of given us initial first aid. The ambulance crews turned up and checked us over. But all the while all that was going on, you've still got the crowd there who are still obviously causing issues.
At any point, it felt like it could flare up all over again. Something could just set it off again.
Later, as more backup officers arrive, the situation is brought under control.
It was very reassuring to see about 90-odd officers turn up to help us.
In Essex, police officers have been attacked and doused in petrol.
I remember thinking, what the heck's going on? What am I meant to do now?
Backup has arrived to scenes of chaos.
There was quite a large crowd, even still at that point after the incident had happened, where members of the public were being vocally abusive towards officers.
It was an awful situation to be in, but you just got to put on a brave face and stay calm.
There were quite a few police cars now with officers they were just constantly turning up, blue lights.
The situation is finally resolved and several people are arrested. 2 officers are taken to hospital and the rest of the team return to the police station to give their statements.
That was an eye-opening experience. I mean, it's not normal for police officers to take statements from police officers. And to be, I suppose, invited into the mindset of those victims at that time, it was chilling. And I found myself close to tears on several occasions writing those statements. That was an experience that I won't forget.
A team of detectives, including Natalie, immediately set to work building a case.
Watching this footage, it was scary because I knew the people on there. And I saw the person that had done it, and I could see that that person was fully intending to attack these officers with that petrol.
On that day, we had to learn what it was to be a victim. And that experience has made us all the stronger when it now comes to identifying with other victims.
Chief Constable BJ Harrington is all too aware of the effects incidents like these can have on the officers involved.
I suppose it worries officers and staff. You know, they understand that they know they are vulnerable. They go to dangerous places. They meet sometimes violent, confused, disturbed, aggressive people who are often in distress. So I think sometimes it can reinforce that feeling of anxiety and fear. Equally, you know, you'll see with these officers, it builds a spirit of camaraderie as well, because they do look after each other.
Five months after the incident, the case was in court.
Coming into court is always a daunting experience, even for detectives and officers that come all the time. Throughout the trial of the co-defendant, it was quite daunting because we didn't know what the verdict was going to be.
The driver of the moped was convicted of driving a motor vehicle dangerously. He was disqualified from driving for 12 months and was also fined. The individual who waved the hammer was convicted of possession of an offensive weapon. She received 9 months in prison, suspended for 18. The man who threw the petrol was convicted of 8 counts of administering a noxious substance with intent to cause injury. He was sentenced to 3 years and 9 months in prison.
The judge awarded the maximum sentence that she could for the offence that was charged and for which, you know, he was found guilty. And I think that speaks a testament to the court supporting us.
This courthouse is basically the place where justice was sentenced.
If it ever crosses anybody's mind to throw petrol over police officers or emergency workers in the future, all I can say is pack your toothbrush when you go to court, because you'll be going to prison. My advice to you is don't do it.
It is good that we can just show that, yes, we understand what's happened here, but it hasn't changed us.
Today, 3 of the officers are returning to the scene together, getting some closure on the events of that day.
This will be the first time I've gone back to the actual scene of the incident since the day back on the 5th of May.
I went back once, but yeah, it's a strange experience going back. It made me feel like just weird inside.
It's pretty much impossible to drive past it or go past it without thinking back to that day and remembering what happened. You get flashbacks and just remember the things that people were saying and what could have quite easily have happened.
This bit here was the swan song, if you like. This was where he just wanted to stick it back to the police and goad us into engaging with him. At that point, I certainly thought we could all go up like Roman candles here.
It's nice to be here with my colleagues, like to get it spoken through of everyone's perspective, how it affected them, what happened.
Being back here with Matt and Andy has helped me come to terms with what went on here. We've all had to process what happened in different ways.
These guys know exactly what it was like because they were there. They were going through the same feelings, the same emotions. They went through the same build-up that led to the incident, and they saw how it came out of nowhere. So coming back here with them, talking through it, we all just know exactly what we're referring to, and it's a lot easier to discuss.
It's that understanding, that camaraderie, that commitment to what we do every day that actually resulted in the police chalking this one up as a success. You know, we did manage to achieve our core objectives on that day. We kept people safe, we put away the bad guys, and we made sure that the community returned to normal and nobody else had any lasting effects.
A week later, the team find themselves back at the Crown Court in Basildon. But this time, it's for something very different. They've just received a commendation from the judge for their bravery on the day of the incident.
It's a bit overwhelming, really. Obviously makes you feel very valued with what we do, and it's a real high point to be commended for doing our job. It feels really great.
It makes you proud for the job that you do, and obviously that you are getting recognised for what you're doing. It kind of makes it feel all worth it.
It's a great honour to receive this commendation. It's normally only given to investigative officers, so for an operational police officer to get one, yeah, it's a massive deal.
There were other people who helped bring the offenders to justice, and all of our colleagues who turned up in support of us. You know, they deserve a part of this commendation too.
I'm feeling massively proud of my colleagues working it, my work, and just the whole of Essex Police.